So we're looking at the Renault Clio in the B segment, small but not tiny. Is that how you would describe it, Rob?
Yeah, very much. Good runaround car for the city, but still fits someone my size in it. Fairly comfortable, so that's good.
And it's got two versions that we have here, Alan.
This is the Zen, and this is the not very intense Intens.
Much difference?
Look, I haven't driven the other one yet. I shall be driving that in a minute, but this one has a lovely ride. The only difference I can see on the outside is the chrome-coloured plastic trim versus the body-coloured plastic trim on the Intens, and the wheels, 16-inch versus 17-inch.
With lower profile tyres. Yes.
Which will affect its ride and such. The engines and gearboxes are the same?
Engines, gearboxes the same. The rest of it is differences in the internal features.
Which we will look at in some detail.
We do. And there's difference in price, obviously. This one's about 20,000 manufacturer's list price, and this one's about 22, 23 manufacturer's list price.
All right, so a competitive, practical little car, but with a bit of quirk of character. Let's have a look at the details.
Let's have a look inside.
So, Alan, the back of the car, it's got a little bit of style about it without going over the top.
Don't you think we've come a long way in base model entry-level cars in the last generation of cars? This has got LED lighting at the back, and all of these sit out. They protrude. There's a lot of sculpting in the back. There's also a nice bit of sculpting as we move further down the car, and the piano black, or whatever you want to call that trim at the bottom. I think it just adds interest to the back of the car.
The lights are angled down just a little bit. It just adds a little bit more than the bland flat lights. Your point about extension.
It's slightly angry, it's slightly aggressive, and I think even more importantly, they've sculpted stuff in just because they can. Now, there's a lot of room in the back of this car. You'll notice here's the reversing camera, and not electric, you'll note, but it's an entry-level car. That's quite a decent-sized boot look.
It's got a low floor pan. What sort of spare tyre? It's only a run flat.
We'll have a look in a minute, but look, I can stand right under it, look, and I'm almost 6 foot. Now, that's something our friend and neighbour Rob cannot do. No, there is nothing under the boot.
So,
Get it down. But the back seats do fold down, I noticed, but there's a step up, so it's not completely flat. A solid parcel shelf, and importantly, internal grab handles. It drives me absolutely potty when you have to put your hands up on top and get them dirty with all the filth on the outside of your car.
so practical.
Very practical, more than enough room in there for an entire family's worth of shopping.
Likely to be used by perhaps younger people, perhaps just a couple or a single. Unlikely to have a lot of children in there, but you could throw a few people in the back if you wanted to.
An older couple downsizing. I'm doing this for the first time, so I've never taken this out and flattened the seats before. Let's see how difficult it actually is. No, okay, all right, well, now what do I do with this? Don't know. Let's just leave that over here for the time being. All right. I'm not quite... Oh, there's some buttons inside. Here we go. Buttons inside. Whoops. And the first man to call me a ham gets a slap in the gob. That's not terribly flat. I don't know if you can see that. Can you get in there? That's quite a step. So you've got a deep bit here, then about 15 centimetres up to that. But I'd rather have the space in the boot for most of the time when I'm going to need it. But if you come around the back, you can put other things up here on the back of the seat if you need to. And the seats went down without having to put the front seats forward, though not perhaps if a 6'2" driver was driving. Under here is just the inflation kit. The best thing I like about this is for the middle passenger that you almost never have, here's the seat belt. It's still a lap sash, so a 3-point seat belt that attaches inside, but for all of the time when you're not using it, it's out of the way. And can you just come down here? Look at this. Hey? Eh? Eh? What do you reckon? I like the coupe styling of the side that we're getting in a lot of these small hatches these days. Back handle up here. And a relatively easy ingress and egress. But with me set in my driving position, not a lot of space. The driver would have to move this seat forward. My seat are firmly in the back. So let's get out. Not an entirely pleasant experience, but not bad. The front, however, entirely different. I can get in here quite happily. There's plenty of space, and I've got this set a long way back. I've got the steering wheel now set to where I can drive comfortably. The things to note on the dashboard is this slight, let's see if I can get this out of the way. Can you get a good shot of that? There's the odd shape around the instruments. This one over here is just for petrol, where you'd normally expect either a speedo or a tacho to be. Tacho's over this side, and in the middle is the gear indicator and speedo, big digital speedo. It seems a little odd at first, but you quickly get used to it. Because this is the top model, it's got a slightly bigger screen. This is 7-inch versus 6-inch in the other car, and we have fully automatic climate control as opposed to the manual air conditioning system in the other car. There's also a few little cubby holes, an easy to get at USB down here behind the gear lever, which you can still get to relatively easily. This is your DCT gear selector. There's a little tiny cubby hole up here, which is just good for little bits and bobs, and a very, very small glove box that really is just for gloves. I like the seat material on this top model. They'll say this is a mix, no doubt, of Alcantara. I haven't checked, but it looks like Alcantara to me. And a leather or leather-like material. This is a quirk of all Renaults. This is the speed limiter and cruise control button. You've got to turn that on before the buttons up on the steering wheel work. On the subject of the steering wheel, here are the audio controls. Now, when your steering wheel's like that, you can't see those audio controls, and as a consequence, you can't easily, unless you know what they are, you can't do. But it changes radio, track, etc., etc. Volume control here, mode, etc., etc. It's also how you answer the telephone. When a telephone call comes in, it comes up on the screen. Much easier just to answer it there. But the system is fairly quick to respond. Also up in this fairly simple control area is the automated parking button. Now, we've used that in other Renault videos before. We find it works really, really well. It's one of the simpler systems about. When you get into a car for the first time, one of the things that you always search for is the door unlock button, and here it's up there instead of on the door where most other things is. This has also got quite a decent stereo system, and importantly for me, this has where are we? No, it doesn't. Is that digital radio? Yes. It has digital radio. Sorry for my indecision. Some call it DAB, some call it digital radio. So you can go in easily and program buttons. Importantly, you've got presets. So these are the preset buttons which you can set to anything you like. Of course, you do have to go into this menu to find them. As with all Renaults, or all of the ones that we've had in Australia at least, they have stop, start and easy access from the outside. So your card key, which is this thing, which looks a little bit like a very large credit card, which will have an emergency key in it, that can just stay in your pocket. It can fit in here if you want. I don't know why you'd want to fit it right. It goes all the way in. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Why would you want to take it out of your bag? And all Renaults have walk-away locking, which I'm going to show you now. So I've gotten out of the car. All I need to do is close the door and then walk away, and it locks all by itself.